Hello, everybody. Please take our seats. My name is Francis Collado. I'm your Executive Director of Visual Communications, and welcome to the 8th edition of C3, the Conference for Creative Content, presented by Nielsen. What began as an idea to discuss new media and content in 2011 has shifted year to year to a series of panels to have relevant dialogue about the current ecosphere of Asian Pacific Americans and creative content. We understand that filmmaking does not happen in a bubble, and that our creative communities, from directors, writers, producers, actors, film critics, from organizations that support and foster creative cross-connections, that we need to push forward conversations that affect us all. Thank you to our friends at SAG Producers Industry Investment and Cooperative Fund. Thank you to Warner Brothers and IW Group, our friends at SAG-AFTRA, Directors Guild of America, Writers Guild of America West, and Comcast NBC Universal. And special thank you to the presenting sponsor, Nielsen, for believing in this conference. And last but not least, thank you to our wonderful panelists and moderators, the ones who push forward towards the conversation for the future. Thank you to my staff and board and our conference producer, Tracy Wen Chung, for your leadership. And stay afterwards for the conference for our hashtag Asian American Creative Roll Call Mixer at OPODS. Up next, I'd like to introduce Marco Carpenter, Vice President of Strategic Community Alliances at Nielsen.
Thank you. Thanks, Francis. Okay, good morning, everyone. Happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. When I look at the calendar of events for this film festival, I think what an amazing week is in store for people of LA. I think I'm gonna have to talk to Francis. I'm from New York City, and I'm right now very jealous. So maybe it's time to expand into New York City, Francis. I don't know where you are. But what is so amazing is that through these films, the people are being invited into the lives of many different Asian Americans. And I can't think of another form, an art form, that can portray our stories and told by our people in such a powerful, memorable way than this festival. And the mission of visual communication reminds me, actually, of a famous quote of a renowned Asian American activist, Yuri Kochiyama. Who knows Yuri Kochiyama? Okay. She was a fierce champion of civil rights causes, but not just, what makes her amazing is not just in the Asian American communities, but the Black community, the Latino community, Native Americans. And this is what she says: unless we know our lives and our history, and other people and their history, there's really no way that we can really have positive kind of interaction where there is real understanding. And this is her. She was the one who was there when Dr. King, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And this festival, to me, does just this. Through this celebration, we're learning about ourselves, but we're also inviting others to join in. And we're very, very proud partners of visual communications, because we at Nielsen knows the importance of understanding the diverse communities that make up this nation. And each year we actually publish this report that's really dedicated to Asian American consumers. And this year it's all about digital. And you can download our report at nielsen.com/Asian Americans, and there is data. There's 55 pages worth of data. So a lot of information that potentially you can use for your work to be leaders of your industry, whether you're doing your pitches for your project. But really we focus on digital, which for a lot of businesses have been a major sort of disruption, right? And then in the media industry, in particular, content creators, like now people, it's so fragmented, the media landscape. But for us, the Asian Americans, it's actually been a great, great time of opportunity. It has democratized our platforms. It has allowed us to be creators and share that in our own way. It's given us access to people and culture of our heritage, and also the convenience to be able to work together as a community here. And then the digital has made us influential digital consumers. We've gotten really, really good at speaking our voice, galvanizing, and making a difference using these digital platforms. So really, we're seeing a lot of momentum in our community. A lot of it is thanks to digital, but I'm so excited to be part of this, because this is a big force for that momentum. And in light of the panel that's about to start here, I just wanted to throw away a few data points, right, to give you some food for thought. 23% Asian Americans are 23% more likely to see a movie at the theaters than non-Hispanic whites. So we're moviegoers. Okay? Asian Americans are 63% more likely to see a movie on opening weekend. Okay? Let's make that like 99% when Crazy Rich Asians come out, right? Asian American actors and actresses command high celebrity scores. And in the report, we talk about this measurement that we have called the NPower at Nielsen. And this actually measures the marketability of celebrities. And this is what your Coca-Colas and your Walmarts, everybody uses to see which celebrity they want to use as their spokesperson. And we see that Asian American actors and actresses command equal score than our non-Hispanic partners. So that tells us that we too are loved and celebrated by all Americans. Asian Americans have a tremendous influential digital voice. Okay, think about all the social influencers that we're all huge fans of, the scale of the audience that they've been able to build, and these are uber fans, right? So imagine, hint, hint, if we were to get all of them to behind this movie, the scale that we would be reaching of the people in this country. And then, Asian Americans, 62% are more likely to buy movie tickets online. Okay, so now we're going on opening weekend, but that is where we're going to actually buy our tickets. So what does that mean? Well, we have to be, as marketers, be there. So when they're making the decisions, so all these content creators, movie brands, they want to be on digital so that they could be in front of us when we're about to click buy for those movie tickets. And last but not least, this is really, really important, we vote with our wallets. We are a powerful consumer group. From year 2000 to 2017, our buying power grew 257%. America in general grew only 97%. So you can just see the rate of growth of our power. And so now we're using our wallet, each of us, as API community members, to vote, to tell the companies which brands we value, which restaurants we prefer, which shows we like. And we're voting with our wallets. And so I think all of this, and there's plenty more data in Nielsen's report, really tell us that this is our moment. And the wonderful, amazing people behind this project of Crazy Rich Asians, like we as consumers can get in on the action and make this a moment for us. So thank you and enjoy the festival. And Francis will talk about New York City. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mariko. Before we start our panel, I just want to bring up our one of our sponsors for this panel, and Ren Hanami, please welcome from SAG-AFTRA. Just say a few words, please. You're on stage.
Good afternoon. Are there any actors here? Good afternoon. Come on. Hashtag APAHM, hashtag LAAPFF 2018. Woohoo. My name is Ren Hanami. I am the national chairman of the SAG-AFTRA Asian Pacific American Media Committee, otherwise known as APAM. At SAG-AFTRA, we represent approximately 160,000 actors, announcers, broadcast journalists, dancers, DJs, news writers and editors, program hosts, puppeteers, recording artists, singers, stunt performers, voiceover artists, and other media professionals. Yes, we are the most powerful performers union in the world. Of those 160,000 members, our APAM committee's purpose is to further the inclusion, authentic representation, and employment of those who identify themselves as being Asian and Pacific Islander heritage. We do this by sponsoring events like this today and other events around the world or around the country. And we thank you for being here to join Visual Communications, Warner Brothers, and Nielsen for this event to celebrate and support the upcoming premiere of an all-Asian and Asian American cast in Crazy Rich Asians. I want to quote the diversity and inclusion expert, Verna Myers, who says, "Diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance." And in the words of the awesome, rest in peace, David Bowie, let's dance. So, thank you. Okay, I will now do a tap dance. I don't know who I'm introducing. Am I introducing someone? Oh, okay, and now a video.
What are you doing, America?
I'm an economics professor.
Oh, let me get this straight. You both went to the same school. Someone came back with a degree that's useful, and the other one came back as Asian Ellen. Psst, PT. This is the kind of girl you should date.
I love you.
Okay? No, just,
She's here with her boyfriend.
I don't see no ring on her finger.
Oh, well, my boyfriend's actually from Singapore.
What's his name?
His name is Nick Young.
The Nick you're dating is Nick Young?
Yeah, you guys know them or something?
Hells yeah. Who doesn't know who they are?
The Youngs are like royalty. Did you not know? Does she not know? These people aren't just rich. They're crazy rich. Damn, Rachel. It's like the Asian Bachelor.
You know I'm back, like I never left. I never left. Another step. Another step. Another step.
Crazy Rich Asians. It's a love story with extremely amazing and funny characters thrown in.
It mirrors the crazy antics of families throughout the world.
I feel glorious, glorious. Got a chance to start again.
It has heart, it has soul, but at the same time, it's funny.
I made it through the darkest part of the night.
The themes of the film are universal.
It's such a fun, modern-day love story. And I'm really excited for the world to fall in love with these crazy characters.
I feel glorious, glorious.
Wasn't that great? You're almost here. They're coming up. Some of you watched it last week, right? Was it good? And so I do want to push this, and really, in terms of representation, us bearing a mirror screen, we do want to show stories that reflect our own selves. So, ladies and gentlemen, our hosts for this panel, Jeff and Phil.
Thank you. Do you want to sit at either end, or does it matter? Okay. Hello, 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 hello.
Hey everybody, I'm Phil Yu. I run a blog called Angry Asian Man. I'm also on the board of Visual Communications. Thank you to the festival, awesome event, and C3 for inviting us to moderate this panel, this very exciting panel. Amongst the other things I do is I am one of the hosts of a podcast called They Call Us Bruce. I almost said the name of my other podcast. Sorry, Jeff. With my co-host, Jeff Yang.
Hello. And yes, I'm Jeff Yang. I'm a writer and author, a serial social media oversharer, celebrity father of a kid who is on an ABC show.
What's his name again?
Hudson Yang, fresh off the boat. Yeah. But we are here to talk about a movie that we genuinely believe is a historical moment for our community and for this industry, frankly. We know that C3 is all about the intersection between those two, how we as Asian Americans can uplift our voices, how we as creators can ensure that our stories are told. And we believe that Crazy Rich Asians, which you saw a little clip of right here, is going to be a signal movement, a signal moment and movement to change the way that we are depicted, change our opportunity as Asian American creators to be brought into the conversation around who we are, our own identities, our own stories being told. And with that, we want to bring out the panelists today for this incredible conversation. Let's get some of the cast and crew of Crazy Rich Asians. Adele Lim, co-screenwriter. Nico Santos, one of our cast members. Chris Pang, another Scream Girls. And John Chu, the director.
We'll share. All right, so pretty pumped about this movie. I don't know if you guys have been following sort of the chatter and stuff like that since the trailer first dropped. I think people are pretty stoked. I'm curious about your reaction to the reaction thus far. I mean, the movie is like 4 months out, and people are pretty dang psyched. What is your first impressions of the first impressions?
It's been pretty insane in the last couple of weeks. You know, when we started this, of course, we're very excited, and but you don't know if it's just our own bubble that's excited about it. But to see the trailer get so much love and shared, and the messages that we got that day and the day after and till today even has been just reaffirming to the hard work that we had to get through and had to fight and do all that stuff. Of course, ultimately, it doesn't mean anything until that movie comes out and people show up at the theater, so I'm trying to stay focused on that. But there is a sigh of relief that, oh, people actually care in this, and that I can't actually wait for them to see the actual movie, because that's what we actually are really excited for people to do.
We got Asian people on screen in a proper trailer.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of Asian people.
My reaction was more of a reaction to other people's reaction of the trailer. So all my friends have been ribbing me going, you have your shirt off in the trailer. Why do you... This is also the second trailer which I've made out with a girl in. So they're just like, dude, what are these movies and roles that you're doing?
Actually, I feel like that's part of the profound, impact of the trailer and the movie. And it was also like, I feel like with John and I, it was like a secret agenda. It wasn't just like Asian faces on a movie screen. I was just like, we need to have some like hot, ripped, shirtless
Every
Asian
meeting,
dudes.
she would say
I'm
that.
just like, I'm like the creepy Asian lady on set, auntie on set, going just like,
I mean, that's why I got hired. So.
But
I was shirtless and being all sexy. So
by the third like shirtless body in the trailer, you're like, okay, they just don't care. They're just throwing them, stacking them on top of each other in there.
And there's a lot more in the movie. Don't get me wrong.
But it is sort of amazing to see people's reactions to it because, like, it is the Asian Black Panther, right? So, for a lot.
I mean, put it this way: we are eager enough to see a narrative that is inclusive of us, that puts us at the center, that people are using those terms. I mean, it's but at the same time,
that was a really strong reaction to that term from the entire room. I'm just saying. I mean,
big
like
debate on Twitterverse. If you've been checking it out.
I think what it really is, I mean, is for the first time in 25 years, it is an opportunity for us to see not just great Asian American actors acting in a wide range of roles. Like this is, I think, the secret sauce to what makes Crazy Rich Asians such a remarkable film. When I first saw it, it's that when we see films with one Asian in it, right, off to the side, and they're the comic figure or the villain or some other role which let's say doesn't really hold up the race, shall we say? It's a problem. But when you see a movie where everybody is Asian American, you have the ability to create roles, to cast into roles with a full breadth of diversity of types of character, and you can have people who are the butt of the joke. You can have people who are the tellers of jokes. You can have people who are bad and evil and nasty, and you can have people who are shirtless and hot. And
Thank you.
And that is remarkable. And let's talk a little bit about that, because casting, I think, is at the core of what makes a movie like this possible, with so many different characters, so many different roles to fill. That was super easy, right? Just finding,
Yeah, it's really easy. We just put out a casting call. No, well, in a way, we definitely, the hard part is knowing who's out there. So we had casting directors, and we had a studio that understood that you had to spend, and we told them this right up front, you're going to have to spend more money with casting directors all around the world and more time for us to figure this out and for us to find the best cast, because the reality is the structure isn't set up. It has cut people out, and people who should be actors aren't acting, and so all those things came into play. Of course, there are people like Nico, who I've been a fan of, and immediately was in my pitch document. People like Ronnie, and then there are people who we met for the first time. I did not know Chris before. I did not know Henry before. I did not know a lot of others before. So that process was actually a really amazing process for me to see how many talented people, so many talented actors. And Adele, I know you saw, I kept sharing all these videos with you too. Yeah. We saw so many that actually didn't even fit into our movie, but are absolutely movie stars. And that's what I think we see the other side, that if this blows open and that they make more movies with more lead Asian actors, there is a whole ocean full that will pop. Absolutely no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, and just to add to that, because with casting minorities in any major movie, it gets to be like a really sticky, prickly thing. You have that in TV as well. In the book, they're like Chinese Singaporeans, and so like one of the big questions was, how specific do you get? But is it true to the person? Is it true to the character? And I think early on, John, and the producers were very mindful about like having the absolute best talent, having a big swath and array, and sort of celebrating that, and also just being thoughtful and mindful about it. Like John would like share these things, and in terms of these auditions and people's performances, and just really have like a thoughtful, open dialogue and engaging as many people as you did, I think really helped the whole process.
And the amount of times we reached out to people in our community to have a debate about who certain accents or certain ethnicities and what roles, and it had to be very specific for each character. It wasn't a blanket rule for us, and that's what we really wanted to focus on when we had those discussions. And they were difficult discussions to have that we honestly didn't even want to include some of the other producers and studio people because they just didn't get it. And we knew that those were actually good conversations to have, and we invited those conversations.
Well, let's rewind a little bit, because where this project really starts is with the source material, Kevin Kwan's book, right? I'm kind of wondering, well, first, how did you sort of get plopped into this project, or how did you grab this project? But also, can you describe a little bit about the perfect storm that kind of needed to happen for this to come together? Because as many people will have said and will continue to say until this thing opens, this is the first, major Hollywood studio movie with an all-Asian cast in like 25 years. And so that didn't happen because we didn't want it. I mean, this is happening now because a lot of things had to fall into place, right? So could you talk a little about that?
Yeah, I was, I was affected by whitewashed out movement that was happening. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, all those things, and I don't make a lot of content about being Asian. I never have. I never wanted to separate myself. I always was like, no, I want to be seen as a filmmaker and be on the level of other filmmakers to be compared to, not some other thing. And so there was a thing in my brain that turned that off. I didn't even want to talk about race. And so when everyone's talking about it online, you guys and other people here and other people around, it broke out the conversation. I don't know, it maybe took that fear away from me and said, oh, other people are talking about it. Is it okay to talk? What are the things that they're saying? What am I allowed to say, not to say? Like, so many emotions in my head of like figuring out the rules. And I think that setting the rules of the conversation is mainly a way that it stopped the conversation. So the fact that the rules were now everything was out, it was talking about it, really affected my brain. I was making a movie at the time, Now You See Me 2, and I was like, and I loved the movie, and I had a great experience, love all the actors, but there was a point where I was like, well, what am I doing? What am I doing in this to help? I knew I had done enough movies now that I had relationships with all the studios. I can push a project through. I can do that. But what in this realm could I do? And so I went through a soul search. I was like, I'm in my 30s now, late 30s now, and if I'm going to make any sort of message, I would like to do that now. So I went searching for the right idea and read a lot of like Chinese scripts from China. I went there, did things here, and nothing really actually. I realized the difference of Chinese stories and the Asian American story, and then my sister emailed me about Crazy Rich Asians, and then said, "Why aren't you doing this movie?" And I had read it a while ago, and so then I emailed my agent, and then that. Anyway, I'm telling a long story, but
no.
The reality
this
is
good
that
stuff.
then
I like
got
this stuff.
Then I was like, and then they said Nina Jacobson was a producer who I adore and love, and I knew it was in good hands. So then I reached out, and then what I found out after reading the script that weekend is they had sent me the script at the same day that I asked to see the script, which is crazy.
Magic, destiny.
So when something happens, and I'm not I don't know how much I believe in that stuff, but when that happens, I absolutely are. I'm supposed to do this movie. I don't care if they say no to me. I'm going. I don't care if they already hired Justin Lin. I'm going to take this away. I'm going to do this movie. I see it. And I just worked with Adele on a project, on a TV project that did not get picked up. And I was like, this needs to have an Asian female writer to bring this perspective that I don't even have. And so when we sat down and talked about it, we brought her on board, and she brought all the stuff. Like, it's interesting, with Adele, we could go to the places that we wanted to go to, that we even hoped the book had, and we could make the things that we needed to do to make, to send the message as an Asian American, what we wanted, that cultural sort of debate within ourselves. We wanted to really bring that out with the gaming, with the thing, and you guys haven't seen the movie, some of you, but that collision course could only be told with Adele. So anyway, that's sort of how it went.
But just to add on to what John was saying, I mean, the beautiful thing that he's brought up early on in this, and I feel like a lot of people in the room can relate to, is like when you're a professional, and particularly when you're a creative professional, you don't want to be seen as the Asian director or the Asian writer or the Asian actor. You just want to be a kick-ass director, writer, performer, like, you know, be celebrated for the artist that you are. And I think with him and me, like, I've spent a lot of years in TV where, you know, I'm not hiding the fact I'm Asian, clearly, but, you know, you don't talk so much about your immigrant experience, you don't talk about your own specific cultural experiences that are specific to you that could add really so much to the project. And so when he called me about this, I was just blown away because he didn't know it at the time, I don't think, but I grew up in Southeast Asia. I'm, Chinese Malaysian, and the Chinese Malaysians and Singaporeans were sort of like of the same cloth. So all the Malay, all the language, the food, the familial like dynamics, which are universal and very, very specific. I was like, oh my God, these are like my people. I never thought in a million years I'd get a chance to write about like this cultural, my world for a major Hollywood movie. And everything John said about it in terms of, again, wanting to like celebrate aspects of it and, what he wanted to bring to it. It was really, really exciting. And, having his voice in there and being able to contribute to it in a meaningful way. And when they talk about representation on the, on the creative level, it's like, yeah, like white people can like do anything that, they're amazing like writers who can write from a different cultural experience, but there are different decisions creatively, casting-wise that are made when you're actually at the table. So anyway, I'm very excited for the opportunity and excited for you guys to watch it.
I think that's a critical piece right there, that this is a movie that comes out of a space at the creative intersection of somebody who is Asian and somebody who's Asian American, somebody who's female, somebody who's male, somebody, working within a genre which has historically and canonically been, let's just face it, the romantic comedy genre is the whitest genre of film that exists in Hollywood. I mean, to the point where it's even impossible to imagine a poster with two romantic leads, effectively, who are not white. Like in your head, when you think of it, it's like Harry Met Sally, whatever. We were talking in the green room about this, but even the genre itself, when you reframe it from an Asian/Asian American angle, changes dramatically. And the first is this. Romantic comedies, the traditional white romantic comedy, is all about the meet cute and then the build up to actually finding a relationship where you actually, oh, you're my soulmate. This movie actually begins well after that and is really about two families getting together and transgressing both the generational cultural divide. That's an Asian American romantic comedy. It's like, not about do we love each other, it's do our parents love each other?
It's true. And it was interesting, the idea of Asian American going to Asia and feeling out of place or finding home or whatever it may be, like that's an experience I think a lot of us have had. That's something when I went to Taiwan for the first time or Hong Kong when I was a little older and thinking, oh wow, when I go into a store they treat me like their son or like their cousin, and it just changed your brain. Like, oh, I feel very comfortable in a way that I didn't understand. I'm comfortable here. I'm an all California boy. But when you're there, all of a sudden it's like, oh, it feels like I'm talking to my aunt, and you're
until you speak
care of
English.
It.
At which
and
point
then
they're like, oh.
Exactly, and then you speak English in there, and you don't understand what they're saying, and then you're guaylo, and that duality, that thing of like, oh wait, I'm not here either, and which one, and we keep it all inside is just something I think to know. One, I love movies, I fall in love with movies because it shares with everybody that everyone isn't alone, that your journey of trying to fit in, finding where you are, what you do, finding your place in this world, and it's the loneliest feeling in the world is that everyone is feeling that, and that's the beauty of life that we're going through. So.
I want to turn to you guys because both of you have done movies and film and TV, obviously, in which you've kind of explored some of these dimensions of kind of cultures in collision, Marco Polo and in Superstore, and both you also have stories that are intimately wound with that itself, the immigrant and post-immigrant story, and of course Chris, you're Australian, right? To what degree, in encountering this story, did you find those stories within you? I mean, it's not just the Asian American story, it's like a diaspora story, right?
Yes, Chris?
Sounds like a very complicated question. Yeah, it's weird because I have done a few projects like that, and it's almost like I almost envy the kind of projects that, say, Nico and that are doing that are not Asian stories. Right, so like Marco Polo has a predominantly Asian cast. The only white guy is Marco Polo. Who's also the title.
Who gets the title?
Character. And then, like Crouching Tiger and that, they're Asian-eccentric stories. But my own experience is, like you said, and I really relate to what John was saying before about that duality, because as a creative as well, see, Adele and John, they don't need to put their face to it, but our faces is what sells. So, you know, like...
Your face.
You're
the pretty one.
I mean, we get jobs based on our look, is what I'm saying. You know, it's the physicality of what we are is built into our work as well. We can't really get away with playing like a white character or whatever, and so that's always part of the consideration. And I've not only felt that in my career, but in life. So that's why when you were saying that duality, you know, going overseas and you feel like you feel at home. That's how I felt the first time I went to Taiwan. So yeah, I grew up in Australia, and you know, Asians are everywhere. You can't escape us. But it's not the same. You know, when you have this face and you grow up in a predominantly white society, you are somewhat of an outsider. And so going back home and that, I did have that same experience. And for me, a lot of the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, I mean, I love acting, I love film, I love, you know, yeah, I'm an artist. But half of the battle is that I don't want people to have that same experience that I had growing up, where you don't have a role model on screen. You know, you're looking at all white TV and the posters that you see at the bus stop. No one looks like you, and your image is almost not accepted. You know, you're not acceptable. And I never want people to feel that growing up. That's a lot of the reason why I do this. I want to make a change, and that's why this movie in particular is so important. I think it represents that change.
Yeah. Good answer. Good answer. How am I going to follow that one? Well, I will argue, I feel like Superstore is one of the most Asian shows out there.
It really is.
I know you're saying that it's not, but like out of, you know, like there are 7 series regulars, 4 of them are people of color. We have a lot of API people in the cast. The stories that we tell aren't necessarily centered about the Asian American or immigrant experience. Sometimes they are heavily leaning towards that, sometimes they're not, which is what I love about Superstore, that where these characters are just sort of allowed to exist in their daily lives, and the plots don't necessarily revolve around that experience all the time. But I was born and raised in the Philippines. You know, I moved to, what? Okay. We'll get lumpia later. I was born and raised in the Philippines, and I moved to the United States when I was 16. So I really didn't have, you know, growing up, I never felt like I was an other until I moved to the United States. And it was very clear when you grow up in the Philippines surrounded by your people, and then you move to Gresham, Oregon, surrounded by white people. I'm like, I am not the same. And, you know, I really had to sort of learn how to live with that. And it was really great filming the movie in Singapore. I felt like I got back in touch with my Asian roots. Like, it was the first time I had been back in Asia in 21 years. And you know, just being in Malaysia and being in Singapore, being surrounded on set, not only on set, but like in the country as you're walking by people who look like you, and you just didn't have to explain yourself. It was like, oh my God, I'm home. I got to go home to the Philippines for the first time in 21 years, and it was such like a magical, emotional experience. And yeah, it was just like a life-changing moment. I hate to say it, but it's like I sometimes forget that I'm Asian. Until when I was in Asia, I was like, oh my God, these are my people. And then like I just get to be surrounded by all these amazing people. I don't have to explain myself. It was really great.
I think one of the things that, and you think you're seeing it with these two, is the cast is just, that's the best thing we ever did on this movie. Each one has this confidence. No matter what journeys you all have been through, you guys exude, you have found your way to the other side and have become who you are, and so proud of it that even myself going through this experience, being with you guys and others that just have no apology to who they are and perform on the screen. And when you watch this movie, I think that's what makes our movie work, is that you will feel this confidence, this unapologetic energy of who they, and each one's so different. Ronnie is so different than Jimmy, which is so different from Nico, which is so different from Chris and Henry, and Constance and Aquafina, of course, and Gemma. I mean, everyone is iconic in their own way. And so when we were all together, this magical energy of one, it was almost like a breath of like, we could just sit there, and I remember us, I think it was like our first dinner, sort of all being together at the hotel in the lobby and just looking at each other and seeing how different and how funny and interesting everybody was, and we just sort of like breathed, and we're like, oh my God, this is you can do what you do now, and oh, guess what? We'll wait for you in your makeup because it has to be perfect because you're the stars of this movie, and it's not rushing you through. Although we had to rush because we didn't have a big budget, but and we didn't always have air conditioning. However. I think that bond was very, very real and changed my whole being for sure.
It just makes the working environment just so much different. Like, you know, when you book jobs here in LA, as a person of color, as a queer person, you are 99% of the time the token. And so it was mind-blowing and so amazing and so lovely to literally just like walk on set. I'm like, he Asian, she Asian, he Asian. They all Asian.
We eating Asian catering.
Exactly. Oh, dim sum? Yes, please. Okay. Every day. And also, I mean, like, just being allowed to sort of, I honestly never thought I would be in a position to, you know, as a queer Filipino, I never thought I would have a career just being myself. Like, I've always thought as an actor that was something like, I'm going to need to butch it up and I'm going to need to play down my Asianness. And to have a career in roles like Superstore and in Crazy Rich Asians where I get to be the gay Asian guy and that's celebrated is mind-blowing to me. And I'm just so proud to be a part of both projects. So.
It was going off of all of them, and again, it was that being at, was it Renaissance Hotel? And
Yes.
seeing everybody and like the array of people. And I felt, and I don't think it was clear to any of us when we were in the process of like writing it and figuring out what it was, but it's really so much a love letter to like the overseas Asian experience. You know, like just even something as simple as the accents of like, you know, where they came from, where they end up in. And one of the most interesting conversations I got into with, I think, producer Nina Jacobson, and we were working through like part of the script, you know, because Rachel is this American Asian who then has to go to Singapore and has that whole experience of feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm among my people, but at least with this certain class, you know, I'm still viewed as the outsider. And it's like inside baseball for Asians of like, you know, if you grow up overseas and you go to a predominantly Asian country, how are you perceived? How are you felt? And at that time, The Big Sick had just come out, I think, and there was the thought of like, well, why can't you make it more like that? Of, you know, oh, she's just like the white person who doesn't get it. But it's a different thing. Like, you know, Rachel isn't white, she's an Asian, and then there's even conversations in the culture of like, well, how Asian are you? And how, you know, and it's a fun platform and a fun way to have that conversation, and just seeing it with our cast and the conversations we were having about it creatively and seeing it play out like amazingly dramatically with Michelle Yeoh and Constance Wu, you know.
In real life, like, this was Constance's first time there as well, ever. And so to see that, and Michelle, when my first conversation of trying to convince her to come do this movie, she was like, yeah, I read the book, and I'm not playing a villain, just so you know. And I'm like, great, because we want to change that character and make it less mustache twirly. And she's like, I can't go back to my friends if I play this so over the top. Like, I need to defend what we believe, and you defend the American side, and then let's have the audience make a choice. And that was such a brilliant thing that when you hire brilliant actors, they bring to the table. And yes, it takes maybe a couple more rewrites, a couple more tweaking, but it really makes the difference in the whole movie.
Yeah.
But you know, that thing you were talking about of, you know, when you, instead of portraying the other culture as the other, and they just don't think like, it's not about that. It's a very, very specific culture. And I think, you know, I'll like just give a shout out to like Kevin Kwan and this amazing book that he wrote, just basically portraying with so much love and joy this, like, even if they're fictitious, that they came from a real place. Like, to this day, I've got aunts and uncles from back home calling me, going like, I know that family, I know who he's talking about. You know, like that feeling of it, that it's, even though the specifics are unique to them, you know, what drives them is it's very universal. And the character that Michelle Yeoh plays, you know, it comes from a place of like, it's not trying to make Rachel feel like the other. It comes from this like deep abiding love she has for her family and for her son, and that's something that tracks through too.
I don't know. I'm not sure how much time we have, and so but I want to bring this up before we get going with all the other stuff, like our signature segment and also Q&A from the audience. But I want to bring up 2 points. One, talking about specifics of the book, Kevin Kwan wrote this book that is so nails those details, like it's ridiculous, you know. I have one quibble with the movie that you guys changed from the book, is that Rachel is now a New Yorker, where in the book she grew up in Cupertino, California, which is where I am from. And I'm like, okay, you know, I accepted that. But even that, like you know, she's from Cupertino. She went to Monte Vista High School. It's named in the book. It's ridiculous. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that is another point in the book that is a little bit of trivia that people might not know this, but in some ways, John, you were fated to direct this movie because you actually, in the world of the book, are a relative to Rachel Chu. Am I correct?
I don't know if that's exactly the thing, but I'm, I guess, referenced in the book because what I find out later, when we talk about magical things that happen it was a consistent thing. You could not deny that every step of the way, someone was blessing and touching us. I have no idea how all this stuff happened, but I find out that my cousin is very good friends with Kevin, who wrote the most amazing book that inspired myself to even chase it. And in the book, she talks about the Chu family in Cupertino, which is where also I'm from. And at one point, he's defending her family and saying, or Nick is defending Rachel's family in the book to Eleanor, and he says, yes, they have to work for their money, but they work really hard. They even have a cousin who directs movies in Hollywood. So when you read a book, you know, you see things and you're like, oh, that's very similar to my life. But you never actually think it's really Truman Show. And then when he said, no, that's you, I was like,
well, the next line... The next line says, you know, that movie with The Rock, that was not... But that, I mean, obviously, when we talk about the whole world aligning to make this movie happen, part of it is whatever blessing that occurred to, you know, bring you and Kevin together and Adele, and then finding, again, these incredibly talented actors. Part of it also is the moment we live in, right? Where we're finally in a place, I think we were just talking about this in the green room too, where you can like look around a gathering like this, you know, a Cape Gala, East-West Players, or another event, and see Asian Americans who you recognize, who you're like, I know that guy, I saw him on, I saw her on, and that moment kind of feels like a coiled spring about to unleash. Mm-hmm. I think we'll probably need to go to our final segment next, but I just want you guys to comment on that. What do you think is going to happen if this movie does what we all hope and hopefully will make happen?
Make more.
Make more. I think the whole thing about like the feeling when people found out I was working with John and writing these, everybody was like, "Oh, you must be so excited! Oh, lucky you!" And of course it was exciting, and I felt very blessed. But really, I would go to bed every night with this crippling sense of just like, "Oh God, if I this up, you know, I will have screwed this over for Asians, and they're not going to give us another movie for 25 years. And I feel like it's that. I want to get past creatives feeling like that you can just go and explore and be brave and do whatever the hell you want to do and not feel like the whole race is like riding on this, you know, like yeah. I want us to be able to do all of it. Like,
I mean, I really wish it just would open the doors, and I'm sure it will open doors for us to tell all of our stories. I mean, the Asian the culture is so vast, and there's so many stories to draw from that, yeah, I wish that we could just allow us to sort of tell everything other than just this one tiny segment of it. So, yeah.
Are we doing turns?
No, I was going to jump in, but I was going to say that, you know, I look around the room and I see everybody who has pushed the line forward. Chris, of course, Tashima with the Cape, and all these different people. And I remember going to that Cape party. We were talking about this earlier, like 2 years ago, and then looking around, and we've been to a lot of Cape events and things, but this one in particular was like, oh my gosh, it's Hudson. Oh my gosh, it's Constance. Oh my gosh, it's this and that. And it was like this, I'm getting starstruck from these people. I'm like, oh, this is like bubbling. This is happening now. And I feel like, obviously we're still in that bubble, but like it's growing, and it's the efforts of everybody doing their thing. Like we're not the first to do this, even though we claim in terms of the studio system. And so yes, it feels good to have an all-Asian cast movie, but that's a feeling and that's just a movie. What we, from the very beginning, what was these little magical moments that happened to us, what it reminded me was we actually are blessed and we have a mission to accomplish. So our goal is we will make the best movie. Of course, we did all our work. We worked our ass off to that. But we're on a fucking mission. And our mission is to open big so that on the level of the
What?
Thanks.
Let's capture that moment right there.
So that on the level of the studio, however they judge how they're going to make more stuff is by money, that occurs on that day. And that's the only thing. If our movie sucked, I would probably say the same thing, but it doesn't. That we can be proud of it, that we have to make a statement. Very rarely do we get an opportunity to where we are on the stage, that spotlight is on and everyone's saying, oh, really? And we're going to say, fuck yes, because I guarantee you, if people show up that weekend, there will be more movies greenlit in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, that have the subject. There are scripts out there. The filmmakers, the writers are here, the executives are here, and it's on the table now. And they have to prove to these Viacom and to these conglomerates that this is a business. And that's the mission that we're on.
And that's where you guys come in, of course. All of you guys better have your scripts ready and your resumes and headshots ready, because the bubble, I mean, it won't pop if this movie doesn't crush it, and it won't fail. This movie is going to succeed. It's just a matter of how much it's going to succeed. But if it crushes it at the way that we all believe and hope it will, really, that Quelled Spring, is going to launch a lot of people into the stratosphere. And
if it doesn't, we double down.
Yeah, we double down. We keep on working. Work harder.
So I just wanted to explain a little bit. So Jeff and I have a podcast, and we're actually recording this to release in the podcast at a later date. So as part of that podcast, we do a segment called The Good, The Bad, and the WTF. So we'd like to play a little bit of that game right now. So Jeff, would you please quickly explain the rules of GBWTF?
The rules of engagement. So this is our lightning round in the show. What we do is we go around 3 separate rounds, and ask our guests, and sometimes we participate ourselves, to talk about a topic in 3 different ways. The first is what's good, the best thing, the most positive thing, the most empowering thing about that topic. The second is the thing that sucked. That was, or if it didn't suck, annoyed you, frustrated, enraged you, was challenging and difficult about the thing. And then finally, the WTF, the thing that to this day kind of leaves you going, wondering what just happened a little bit about that topic.
Not necessarily bad.
Not necessarily bad.
Could be good as well.
Could be good. Yeah. Could be good. We're going to ask our panelists here to play this game with us quickly, and we're going to begin with the good round. And let's start with John. What was the best thing for you about making this movie, Crazy Rich Asians?
Meeting this cast, for sure, and working with them. They are the most talented people I've ever worked with. They bring light and energy, and their perspective on scenes and what they're creating in this world is so exciting. And so to be able to watch them do their thing and just try to keep up with the camera was the best it was the best gift I could ever have. And be in Malaysia and Singapore, sitting there with great food while this is happening. I mean, and now they're some of my best friends. So.
I'm second, and you already said everything that I want to say. What? The good. I mean, just feeling like what I'm doing actually matters. I think that was one of the most rewarding things, because this movie is important. And so I'm honored to be a part of it. And I think just being included in this was the best thing for me, besides everything that John said.
Yeah, so meeting the whole cast and crew, we become like a super close family, so that was really amazing. The food was spectacular. I gained a lot of weight. The shopping was amazing, so that was also awesome. Yeah, say that.
I have an A and a B. The A was probably like partying with Aquafina in Phuket. And B is, like I said, my family's in Malaysia, and so because we shot there, finally my family and my mother thought I had a real job.
Okay, and so now, thank you for being quick with your answers. We will go to the bad. What's the, if you can say something, find something, what's like the bad or the worst part of being in this, of working on this project? Maybe we can start with Adele and go down. Yeah.
The bad part. I can't talk about the bad parts.
The challenging, the difficult. It doesn't have to be. Yeah, yeah.
Difficult.
Okay. The challenging, difficult parts. I think for me, it was like when we were doing all these rewrites, the Writers Guild was about to go on strike, and we are like 15 hours ahead. So the producers, everybody, who I love tremendously, but you could sense the pressure of just write like the wind. And I'm like writing in this crazy office, and there's like a thunderstorm outside.
Because there's a pencil down moment. It's like an hour.
It was a pencil down moment of just like having to, like literally you got to stop. And I'm just like, I can't. This is like a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm gonna have to like scab. It's gonna be like a whole thing, but I can't. And so it was just writing and having to hit refresh on that deadline feed like every few seconds of just like, I just gotta get this done. When you talk about like writing, like there's a gun to your head, you guys, like, you're like, the future of Asians is on this. And right. So yeah, that.
That's amazing.
I remember the first scene I shot for the movie was the makeover scene, and I had just flown in from LA to Malaysia, and I was super jet lagged, and I don't remember filming the scene at all. Don't remember it. Nothing.
I've seen it. You're pretty good in it.
Okay, good. Thank you. I have no idea what I did or what I said. And so that was probably the bad. The heat and night shoots. That was the night shoots. Were at 4 in the morning. We were just like, just getting loopy. So yeah.
I think it was just one bad you're supposed to say, but it's okay.
I love you.
I think it's the pressure of representing. Like this is important. So I think the bad for me was just dealing with that pressure of just rock up to set, do your job, and just suck less. Don't be bad, Chris. That was what I was dealing with. Be good.
I was gonna say it was the heat, absolutely. That the humidity, it was crushing, and then to make people look great, whole cast in a 2.5-minute oneer in the middle of a mansion that you don't have any heat in. You had fans with ice, that blue ice or something, and we were dying. Oh my God! I mean, I was fine because I'm behind the monitor and I have all my fans, but they were dying.
No,
And I felt really bad that I had to spray the cold water on my face to look like I was sweating, and I felt very guilty.
When we shot that, when we were arriving to the wedding, and it was like in the sun in Singapore, like it was like noon or something, blazing sun. It was like 100-something degrees, and I was wearing a really thick purple velvet tuxedo jacket, and I took it off, and it looked like I was in a wet T-shirt contest. Yeah,
I yelled at a lot of people those days, just so you guys know.
Thank you.
More fan service, the wet T-shirt. No. Finally, the last round, the WTF. What was the weirdest thing that happened or that you encountered or experienced in the course of actually making this movie happen?
A lot of people, we asked for a lot of submissions early on because we wanted to see people who may not have had the opportunity. We hired several, actually. One who goes to USC, who goes to USC. They sing the opening song for us in both Chinese and English. It's really amazing. She was like 22 years old. Anyway, the weird part of that is you get some strange people that reach out to you. And one of them was this person, and I won't say the name, and they pretty much stalked everybody here, and they sent pictures of themselves. It was a he that sent himself in very compromising positions, one of which they're in an outfit, and there's a thing falling out of the outfit, and so that was interesting. I love the enthusiasm, though, but it was interesting.
But you cast Ken anyway. No.
Yes. True.
I gave way too much attention to that guy, by the way. That was one of the first things you said to me when I rocked up on set. You were like, "You are following him on Instagram." Why?
I thought he was your friend. That's what I was
Chris, so do you have a weird or unusual?
Yeah, well, the thing about this book that, you know, like Adele was saying, everyone feels like they know who these characters are in real life. And Kevin was saying this too. People always go up to me like, oh yeah, I know who, I know who this family's based off and that family's based off. I went out one night in Singapore when we were filming with some of these crazy rich Asians, like legit, and they were telling me who every family was, but they told me, because I play Colin, they're like, you don't exist. Instead of really condemning, they're like, I shouldn't be part of this movie. You're like, you don't exist. I'm really upset about it. That was kind of weird.
WTF moment. I had heard about the project, and I was bugging my agents for months. I'm like, get me in the room. I want to audition for Oliver. The character is gay, wears glasses, and he's supposed to be fashionable. I need to play this part. And for months, they were trying to like, we don't know if we can get you in the room, And finally, they were like, we got you an audition. And I was like, great, I'm going into surgery in a couple of days, so you need to push that audition for another week. And I literally went to the audition. I still had like an eye patch because it was eye surgery. And like just before the audition, I had to be like, boop, I'm ready. She ready for her audition. Yeah, so that was a kind of a what the fuck moment for me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
Adele.
So many. No, I think when John talked about like weird magical moments that happen through this, one of a big, it's a location, but it plays a huge part in the book and the movie, which is it's like the house that Nick's grandmother and his family has, and it's this gorgeous old colonial home, and they were scouting for this place in Malaysia, and John was just like, well, we found this crazy house. It's completely like overrun and like grown over by jungles,
monkey poo everywhere,
iguanas and shit. Like, and I looked at it. I was like, it looks so familiar. I was like, that looks like the place I was married in, and it's like a really historic, beautiful house in the middle of Kuala Lumpur. And when I was there, it used to be where the Queen would stay when she came by and whatever. It was so it had the life that I knew it. Then I saw it for this movie, and it was just again like the jungle had taken over, and and then to see it when we got to Malaysia, and we had this amazing production designer who then transformed the whole thing, and you're sort of like looking at it going like, holy wow, like sort of seeing like your own life kind of go through these insane, huge changes and evolutions. But it was one of those trippy like life art and everything.
She got married in the building that we shot Pirates of the Park. That's insane.
It was, yeah, they really had transformed it. It was beautiful, and then like a bat would fly by. You're like, oh. Yeah.
The outtakes.
Jeff, do you have a WTF or anything?
I mean, I think most of the WTFs I have are really kind of baked into the question of why it took so fucking long to make this movie. And I'm not talking about how long it took you guys to make it. You guys did it very fast. But it has been a quarter century since we've seen this many Asian Americans on screen at the same time. And when I came out of that film, there were moments I cried. I mean, literally, which is bizarre. I don't cry over anything, really. And this...
You heartless.
You son of a bitch. This movie actually had my heart in my throat several times just out of the sheer recognition, the sheer sense of feeling for the first time reflected in something that I cared about, that I laughed at, that I felt a little bit transformed by at the end of. And the WTF again is, I'm 50 years old, guys. I mean, this is like a long ass time to have not seen this in my life. So hopefully it won't take another, half century for this to have made a difference.
I mean, I think along the same lines, it's like, look, this movie is yes, it is a big deal. Like, this is awesome, it's momentous. It's also like, this is a fun-ass movie, man. This is such a great movie that people just go and enjoy. And sometimes I feel like there's a lot of scrutiny on this film. We have this room is packed. We spent, last hour talking about this. White people don't have to do this with their romantic comedies, right? Like, they just don't have this, like, level of you know, they can just open a movie and just have, and then people go watch it and whatever. It does well, it does not, and then they'll just make another one, you know, a couple months down the line. It's like, that is white privilege. That is like, it's ridiculous, you know? So
I've totally seen Crazy Rich Caucasians like 30 times.
But I, you know, so I understand. It's just like, it shouldn't have to be this way, right? Like the fact that it took so long is why we have all this scrutiny, all this, everyone kind of having these discussions, and you know, and I hope that we can get to the point where it's like, there can be, this movie doesn't have to represent every single Asian on the planet. Like it can be, you know, you can have the people who like their romantic comedies or their action thrillers or their whatever, like, you know, and we can just be, you know, we can just do that, you know.
Great place to end this part of the conversation. We do want to flip it over to questions from you guys if we have time. But before that, we want to thank our panelists. For the purposes of our podcast, one of the things we do is, in thanking you guys, we ask how people can actually find you in the real world and on the digital world. John Chu, where can people find you online if they want to follow you and find out more?
You can go on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook at John M. Chu. JONMCHU.
Chris?
All right, now I realize I need to fix this up because that sounded so clean. My usernames are different for everything, but Instagram, Pangers. But I say that in Australia. I say that with an Australian accent. There's an R in there. It should be Pangers. So it's Pangeerz.
It looks better, you know, on the screen when you say it out loud.
It sounds okay
like, you know.
when you say it. Pangers. Follow me at Pangers. And Twitter's the same, but with one E. Because that one was available. And then clean this up.
Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nico Santos.
Learn.
Very clean.
Oh, sorry. If you want to follow a writer, sure. Instagram, Twitter, Adele Belim.
Jeff, where can people find you?
I'm Original Spin, pretty much everywhere where you might be looking for me. And how about yourself, Phil?
You can find me at Angry Asian Man and on angryasianman.com. So that does it for this portion of the conversation. For the purpose of the podcast who are listening, thank you for listening. Okay, let's move to the Q&A.
Thank you. So do we have time to actually get questions? We do, right? A little bit?
We do,
Couple?
yeah.
Okay. I think you were first.
They gave us, well, one, thank God for Kevin Kwan for writing a book that did very well, and his influence was very important. So I think the alliance of our strong producers, Adele, myself, Kevin, we could hold the line a lot. Of course, they love. I mean, they can give their opinion, and we make changes accordingly. But we held on the things that we wanted to hold. There were some fights, I'm sure, in the middle of it all.
Uh-oh, I know who you are.
Get all that?
So the question was, what are the differences between directing in Asia versus in Hollywood and acting the same? And also, I think very good point was brought up that this movie, even from its very title, kind of begins a conversation beyond race and into the question of class and classism and how that plays out both in the diaspora and in Asia and here in America.
Well, directing in Asia, in Singapore and Malaysia specifically, was amazing. I mean, they call you Director Chu. They're very super respectful and super hardworking. You know, we're bringing our crew in, and we have specific ways that we work in Hollywood specifically, and so but we had to train some of the people that are on the ground a bit more, but they figured it out. Like, they're super smart, and I think that there's lots to be done there for sure.
This is gonna reach, yo.
Pass the mic.
I don't understand
What
what's
is happening?
Someone's passing the mic.
You're passing the mic back and forth. Or we can just create a braid.
Okay. I already forgot the question. I've never worked in, I've only worked in Hollywood, so when we started filming in Malaysia and Singapore, I guess I just had to get used to the way things are run over there. It's just a little bit different from the way things are run the SAG way. So, but yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think for us making a film, like, I think the Asian way of making films is very different, right? And I think that's more relevant to your question. But in terms of our experience, we were on a Western production. We were doing a Warner Brothers film, so it was just doing what we do here, but in Asia. Really.
Yeah, they had to abide by SAG rules for us, so it wasn't that much different. But the Asian crew was telling, I mean, they were spilling the tea, girl. They were like, we don't get breaks. So my hair and makeup guy was like, the longest I worked was 24 hours straight. I know. Yeah, so it's just a different.
Not on our production.
Not on our production, but like in Asian productions, yes, they were treated very nicely in our production. But like, I guess in when they do films or TV projects in Asia, I mean, there's not so many rules. So they're like, we work for 24 hours straight, and like, they don't have a union, yeah. And so and the rate of pay is very different, and the hours are very different, and what, you know. So thank God for SAG. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Just give it back. We're just making it super awkward.
Yeah.
I just want a quick thing on when you were talking about, like, you know, like the class system and all of that. And I think this is why, like, this movie is unique in terms of a platform unlike any others, because in our world, you get to explore the fact that Asians can be racist and be shallow, and because we don't have to speak for all Asians, you know, it's like in this large, extended, really varied family, you get, like, you know, these guys, and like we're all like part of it, and you're just showing different facets of it. But yeah, I think the reason the movie is so much fun, you know, is that like we're not afraid of like going deep down in it, and there are these characters that and yes, kind of over the top, but just again, I feel like a joyful celebration of it, played by Nora Lam Awkwafina, you know, in the character of Peik Lin, and like, you know, what this like the more gauche, you know, superficial, materialistic aspect look like, and that it's not necessarily something to be like, you know, shunned. It's just like that can also be kind of like fantastic in its own way.
Yes, the person next to the person going like this, the one very patiently going like this. Yes. The question is, they're going to market it differently in Asia versus here.
Ciao, everybody.
I mean, every movie markets differently in different territories, and they have different sort of groups that are more localized, that understand sort of the sensitivities that they need to be aware of, or whatever that may be. Although I think we're selling ourselves as a fun romance, family drama within it all, and I think that works pretty much everywhere. I have people who don't speak any English watch the movie, and they loved it and got it, and their translator, who was usually with them, weren't, because they're investors in the movie, weren't next to them, and they still loved it and still laughed, and they're like, Chinese people are still going to get this. Other people are still going to, you don't need to actually know the language. So I think in terms of marketing, of course, that's a bigger question for Warner Brothers and how they do all that stuff. But what I've seen is that they're doing it as a big Hollywood movie more than anything else. So.
Okay, we're getting the signal to wrap. It literally says, please wrap, and I'm doing like this. So, I want to thank, let's please help me thank our panelists for being here and sharing. Crazy Rich Asians opens everywhere on August 17th. So mark your calendars, bring your friends, make some plans. And thank you all for sticking around, listening, and engaging. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
If you can't remember, August 17th, it's 8/17, which adds up to 8. There's a significance. See it everywhere.
Thank you.